Everybody. Welcome to the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Review Board meeting. I am the Vice Chair of the Review Board, and I'll be your host tonight. Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Review Board for the National Register of Historic Places. My name is John Stark. I'm currently the Vice Chair of the Review Board. The board's purpose this evening is to consider the nominations of properties to the National Register of Historic Places. As most of you know, the National Register is a federal list of those places deemed worthy of preservation. A nomination form has been completed for each of the properties that will be considered tonight. Each nomination form has been sent to the review board members, and each member has had an opportunity to study it prior to this meeting. The owners of nominated properties, local officials, and interested local groups have been notified of this meeting. All have been invited to send written comments about the nomination and to attend this meeting. Some of you may wish to speak this evening about a particular property. You are welcome to do so, and I encourage you to address yourself to the question of whether that property meets the criteria of significance of the National Register. These criteria are the most standards against which the review board will evaluate the nominations. The evaluation is the board's only assignment. These criteria have been established by federal regulation. Copies of the criteria have been sent to the owners of nominated properties and to other parties I mentioned earlier. A description of the National Register program has also been sent to them. Each of the nominations will be presented by a staff member. Persons reviewing the meeting remotely will then be given an opportunity to comment. These comments should be limited to 3 minutes. The State Historic Preservation Review Board will then discuss the nomination and a vote by the board will follow. Should a nomination be determined this evening to meet the criteria for the inclusion in the National Register, the nomination will be forwarded to the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer, Amy Spong. Should she agree that the property meets the criteria and that the nomination is in the proper form, she will sign the nomination and forward it to the National Register office in Washington, D.C., where it will be reviewed once more. The process is a lengthy one, but it is calculated to subject each property to rigorous evaluation. Before we begin, I would like the members of the State Historic Preservation Review Board to introduce themselves, briefly stating the role they fill on the review board and their particular expertise. And I'll begin. I'm John Stark. I am the vice chair, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm a historic architect practicing in the Twin Cities area. Is Member Anderson on? I think she had to be gone tonight. Member Brunfeld? Is Pam there? Member Decker?
I guess I'll start it out.
There you go.
I'm a member at large. I work at the Stearns History Museum part-time in St. Cloud.
Member Dyer?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Dyer. I'm a member at large. I currently work in design research. I'm also an archivist and librarian.
Member James?
Hi, I'm Elliot James. I'm one of the historians on the board. I work as assistant professor of history at the University of Minnesota Morrison.
Member Koski?
I am Philip Koski. I serve on the board as a historical architect, and I am a practicing architect in Minneapolis.
Member Levasseur? Don't see her on the list. Member Mann? Board Member Mann is not there. Board Member Olson.
Hi, my name's Steve Olson. I am a member at large on the board, and I am a professional civil engineer.
Board Member Schulke.
Hi, I'm Chris Schulke, Director of the Ottertail County Historical Society, and I am a at-large member as a historian.
Board Member Salmonson.
Hello, I'm Kate Solomonson, and I'm an architectural historian. And I'm going to leave the meeting briefly to fix the sound. I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Warner.
Hi, I'm Mary Warner. I am a member at large, and I am an executive director of the Morrison County Historical Society.
And Board Member White. And I don't see him on the list.
Yeah, and
Is it-
Chair Stark, I was just gonna see if Michelle or one of the SHPO staff are on and have been kind of tallying who we have, just to make sure that we do have a quorum. And
Okay.
I'm wondering if we have Board Member Lavasser has since joined us, looks like.
Okay, Board Member Lavasser, could you introduce yourself? You may be on mute. There you go.
Am I unmuted?
Now I hear you live and well.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm having a little trouble with the controls for some reason.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm Andrea Lavasser. I'm the prehistoric archaeologist. And what else are we doing here? Just introducing?
Just introduce yourself. Yep.
Okay, prehistoric
That works.
archaeologist. And I'm retired from the Chippewa National Forest, where I was the forest archaeologist and heritage program manager.
Thank you.
So, excuse me, Amy, this is Michelle, and
Yep.
yes, we do have 10 board members present. We do have a quorum.
Okay, wonderful. Just wanting to make sure.
Okay. And I believe the agenda next thing is approval of the minutes from last month.
Actually, John,
Or do you need
if I could,
you
yep.
need your informal beginning? Sorry, I skipped right over it.
We
Nervous
kind of
me.
jumped in. That's okay, not a problem. Just a few kind of housekeeping announcements that we've got for everyone. First, I do just want to state that we are following open meeting requirements in the way that we are hosting a virtual meeting. Essentially, what Minnesota statutes requires of a virtual meeting is that all members can hear one another. So we do want to make sure that the public and board members can hear one another. And then that we also take a roll call. That's the other kind of main requirement, that every one of our votes is done through a roll call. So Vice Chair Stark will be doing that this evening, and we're gonna help you out if you need that. But we kind of tested it with the introductions, and I think it'll go just fine. The other thing I just wanted to note for the to the board that I don't think we've brought up previously, and we can maybe present a little more information on this at our August meeting. However, just wanted to let everyone know the SHPO has the ability to provide or to make National Register nominations with sensitive information, archaeological sensitive information, non-public, private data based on data request. And we've been talking in our office and with the Office of the State Archaeologist and leadership at the Department of Administration. And, you know, since we've moved over to the state, we've realized that while it's clear that SHPO has the authority to make National Register nominations private, there's a lot of additional materials in our office, reports, site forms, inventory forms, our database information that may also have sensitive information based on archaeological data or tribal sites that are related to tribal significance or cultural significance. And so we have now a signed determination signed by the Commissioner of Administration that does make all of those private, non-public data as well. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that's something new. It was signed in August of last year already. It hasn't been, you know, all that different because our office has been closed. So we haven't had to put in place, you know, a lot of different mechanisms for people visiting the office who are accessing our files, but that will definitely come when we start opening our office back up to the file. So I just wanted to mention, and I don't know if David Mather has anything to add that I might have messed up on.
Hi, Amy. No, I think you got it. It's a really exciting development because you know, a lot of those procedures previously were not entirely clear, and we had, you know, made the best of it as we could. But it's a wonderful thing to have a very plain language, unambiguous determination that we can keep sensitive data, archaeological sites, traditional cultural properties, things like that, private.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just a couple additional, for those who might be joining us for the first time, welcome. I see a lot of familiar names, but this is our WebEx meeting platform, and there are a couple features. We do just want to remind everyone to mute yourself if you're not talking. We also have that ability to do that. A couple of us are hosts. And there's also a hand raising feature if someone does have a question or want to bring that up, and Jenny's already done that. Maybe that was to demonstrate and then it disappeared, but for most
entirely
of us,
intentional.
okay. For most of us, that is in, there's a little smiley face emoji with a plus kind of sign, and if you click on that, then you see at the top of the box that there's a raise hand feature. So just wanted to point that out for folks. And I think we're all getting accustomed to muting ourselves and some of the nuances of virtual meetings. So I think with that, my last announcement is just that this is our last meeting, as many of you know, before our state historic tax credit program is set to sunset on June 30th. And one of the requirements, as you all are probably aware, is that properties or developers that are hoping to take advantage of that state tax credit, the building has to be listed on the National Register prior to our office issuing allocation certificates. And so this is really the last meeting that we can forward nominations on to the keeper of the National Register. So with that, if anyone does have edits that they're going to bring forward this evening, to be sure to get those, turn those into staff. I think, are we asking within a week? Is that, I'm seeing Jenny shake her head, yes. So just to turn those comments around and any edits as quickly as you can, so we can get those. It's going to be a busy, you know, next couple days of processing these properties and recommendations and getting those to the keeper so that they can turn around and give us and finalize the listing by June. So with that, I will hand it back off, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Amy. Yeah, and I think anybody can call John Disher here between the meetings if you have issues to get through there. So write down the number now if you have problems. Then we'll go on to nice pictures. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes from last February 16th.
Board Member Schulke, so moved.
Okay, are there any changes or additions to that? Is there a second?
Board Member Warner, I will second.
Okay, we will do our vote by going through alphabetically the board members again. Tell me aye or nay. Board member, see, Anderson is gone, Brumfeld is gone. Board member Decker.
Aye.
Board member Dyer.
Aye.
Board member James.
Aye.
Board member Koski.
Aye.
Board member Levasseur.
Aye.
Board member Mann, I believe, is gone. Board member Olson.
Aye.
Board member Schulke.
Aye.
Board member Salmonson.
Aye.
Board member Stark says aye. Board member Warner.
Aye.
And board member White is gone. Minutes are approved. We will move to our nominations. I believe, Dennis, it's all yours.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting my video going. There we go. So John, am I ready to share?
Yep, Dennis, you should have the presenter role now.
Okay. And can everyone see that? Okay.
Yes.
So, Board Member Schulke, did you want to say anything here? Because our first property is the Red River Mill.
I just want to say that it's about darn time that we get this done. It's been a long, long process since the mill has been empty since the very early 90s. And so I am so thankful that this is getting done. And it just shows that regardless of if a property is abandoned for many, many, even decades, it's still worth saving. I'll be quiet.
Were you going to excuse yourself from the discussion?
Yes. I will repeat. Yes.
I just
do I have to leave the room then or what? Just no.
Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think so at this point.
I'll be quiet.
But yeah, anyway, so this is okay. This is the Red River Milling Company in Fergus Falls, Ottertail County, and the authors are Rolf Anderson, Emily Gansel, Douglas Mack, and Kathy Evelbold. I hope I pronounced that right. Constructed in 1915, the Red River Milling Company is situated immediately north of the Ottertail River and just south of the business district in Fergus Falls, a community in Ottertail County in northwestern Minnesota. It is a multi-story industrial complex composed of a rectangular building and several grain elevators. And here we're looking at the main complex, and these are the south and east elevations, and we're facing northwest. The map at top left depicts Fergus Falls, which is just north of Interstate Highway 94. The inverted teardrop icon marks the location of the mill. The site map at bottom right is a closer view with a black arrow showing the mill location just north of the Ottertail River. The mill is a prominent edifice, visible from some distance because it towers above its surroundings. It is primarily of reinforced concrete and brick construction. The main milling building is largely rectangular and houses the office, flour mill, feed mill, and a grain elevator, which is in addition to the 6 elevators to the west. And at left, we are looking at the north elevation. Our view there is to the southeast. And at right is the south elevation. The view there is to the northwest. The ghost remains of a sign named the mill. At left is a view of the elevators at left, and the main complex is to the right. And we are facing northeast. In the middle, the image in the middle is the main complex, and that's the south elevation. The view there is to the northeast. And then at right is a view from south of the Ottertail River, toward the south elevation of the mill, and the view there is to the northwest. Here are some interior views. At left, we see the mezzanine at the first floor. Our view is to the southwest. The image in the middle is of the bins at the third floor, and we are facing northwest. The photo at lower right shows a collection of spouts. Our view here is to the northeast. The original Red River Milling Company complex were wood frame structures erected in the early 1870s, but the mill did not last for many decades as it burned down in March of 1915. And here we see a circa 1910 image. The mill erected to replace the original was of reinforced concrete and brick construction, not only fireproof, but resistant to other forces of nature. The American Miller included an article on the mill in 1916, noting that the mill, quote, represents the most modern ideas in both construction and equipment. The mill would become one of the major milling concerns in Fergus Falls. Here we see the mill after the 1919 cyclone that devastated Fergus Falls. The mill survived while all else around it perished, demonstrating the durability of reinforced concrete and brick construction. The Red River Milling Company would become one of the preeminent mills in Fergus Falls, establishing markets not only throughout the region, but throughout the country. It even reached markets overseas. It was the last mill to close in Fergus Falls. The period of significance is 1915 to 1970. The level of significance is local, and the National Register criteria are A and C. The areas of significance, industry, and engineering. The period of significance begins with construction of the mill in 1915 and continues until 1970, which marks the 50-year threshold for consideration of properties to the National Register of Historic Places. The last remaining mill in Fergus Falls, the Red River Milling Company, was a substantial commercial concern, establishing local, regional, national, and even international markets for its products. It is a representation of the evolution of mill construction and technology. Completed in 1915, it was unlike its predecessors, wood frame structures that were often picturesque but could not match the durability of reinforced concrete construction, as was demonstrated when the mill survived the cyclone of 1919. Moreover, it housed the latest in milling equipment and was designed from inception to operate with either water or electrical power. As the foremost representative of the milling heritage of Fergus Falls, the Red River Milling Company is eligible for listing in the National Register. And we have one piece of correspondence here. The March 5th, 2021 letter is from Chris Schulke, who is the chair of the Fergus Falls Heritage Preservation Commission. And speaking on behalf of the mayor of Fergus Falls, Mr. Schulke notes that the mayor and the commission unanimously support nomination of the mill to the National Register of Historic Places. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Is there anyone in the audience who has anything to say or additional comments?
This is Ralph Anderson. Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to say a few words. First, like many nominations, this one, I think, more than one would have expected starting out. And in fact, I would say, though, working in an abandoned mill without electricity turned out to be a very interesting experience for us. I don't necessarily recommend it. There are lots of interesting and dangerous places one can fall into and fall over and so forth. But it was quite an experience to do the field work on this property. But I think, as you saw from the nomination, so many different themes came about. One would have thought the themes would have involved agricultural and flour milling. But as you know, there was a whole story about the design of the mill and how it represented the latest in that technology. Also, the notion of water power and its impact there in Fergus Falls, and how industries vied for that water power, but then tried to transition to more efficient means. And also this mill surely represents this.
Ralph, we lost you there. If I believe you're on mute.
Okay, how about now? Is that
That's better.
okay?
Now you're back.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
for a sentence.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. And as you noticed with the with the tornado from 1919, even that came to play a role within the theme here of the mill. And I think you'll all agree if a picture's worth 1,000 words, this photo of the mill after the cyclone certainly would fall into that category. In fact, I'd remarked at one point, I think perhaps the mill should be eligible just on the basis of that photo alone. It's Dennis Gardner and I had lengthy discussions up front and poured over lots of information that we were trying to develop just to understand the archaeological component of the mill, how the water power worked, what was left of those remnants, so we could understand it. Also want to thank Bob Frame, a mill expert, who provided access to his manuscript for his upcoming book on mills in Minneapolis. It really helps set the stage for understanding the architectural and engineering significance of the mill. And also Kathy Aavold from Ottertail County Historical Society. I don't think we could have met the deadline for the nomination without her help. This was indeed one of the nominations that we're trying to get under the wire just in case the tax credits do not get renewed. And Kathy gave us so much assistance throughout all of this. We really truly relied on her. I think we continued to pose complicated questions to her day in and day out. I think, for example, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say I would send her a note saying, gee, find me a photo of the mill between forth. So she really played a key role here. But finally, I think the mill, as Chris alluded to, it really is a remarkable survivor. It could have easily been taken down 30 years ago. And here it stands, awaiting a new life, and it can now then continue to tell us this very remarkable story. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Mills are fascinating. I've had some connections with a few, and it's dangerous walking through them, but it's really fun trying to figure out what went on. I was amazed at the drop in water in Fergus Falls there that was 85 feet and another 150 feet. Minneapolis is only 40, 45 feet, so it's a big difference. Is there anyone else who would like to speak from our audience? If not,
This member Decker, I would like to know, are there any future plans for this building?
I can go ahead and answer the question. I mean, the plans are underway to convert the mill into apartments.
Oh.
Which would have a very wonderful site there along the river.
Thank you.
Any other comments from board members? If not, looking for a motion.
I so motion it and send it to the keeper.
John Decker makes a motion.
I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
This is Mary Warner. I will second.
Okay, we will move to a vote. Aye or nay. Board member Decker.
Aye.
Board member Dyer.
Aye.
Board member James. Board member Koski.
Aye.
Board member Levasseur.
Aye.
Board member Olson.
Aye.
Board member Schulke.
Abstain.
He is abstained. Board member Salmonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark, aye. Board Member Warner.
Aye.
And if any other board members have joined us since, I think that does it. The nomination has been accepted. And we move on to the Pillsbury Academy. Dennis.
Okay, and just to let everybody know, I think Jenny and I tried tonight to sort of narrow down the narrative a little bit, just because we had such a heavy agenda. So, I just wanted to let everybody know that. This is Pillsbury Academy, and this is a boundary increase. We're seeking to increase the boundary of the district. It's in Owatonna, Steele County. The author is Amy Lucas of Landscape Research, LLC. Pillsbury Academy is a district of educational buildings in Owatonna, Steele County in southern Minnesota. The campus was listed in the National Register in 1984. Pillsbury Academy was endowed by philanthropist George A. Pillsbury. Recently, we sought to extend the boundary of the district to bring in additional educational buildings that show the growth of the campus in the latter part of the 20th century. It was founded in the late 1880s. And Pillsbury Academy was Minnesota's first Baptist academy. And what we have here is a view of the west elevation of Old Main. And the view here is to the east. The map at left shows the campus toward the central part of Owatonna. The map at right is a close-in view of the campus. The red line shows the boundary of the district. Here's another map of the district. If you look to the center, you will notice a black line that marks the boundaries of the district that were established in 1984. The red line depicts the boundaries of the district for this current nomination / boundary increase. And here we get a bird's eye view of the campus. We are largely looking to the east. The buildings are a mix of architectural styles and include Romanesque Revival, Classical Revival, Italianate, and International. The district is composed of 14 buildings, with 10 being brought into the district with this boundary increase. At upper left is again Old Main, while the photo at the bottom middle is the north elevation of Jeff's Hall. Our view here is to the south. The image at upper right is the west elevation of Kelly Hall, and the camera is facing east. All of these buildings date to the early decades of the campus. The image at left shows an interior shot of Jeff's Hall, and the photo at right is an interior view of the auditorium at the second floor in Old Main. The Academy saw a substantial decline with the onset of the Great Depression in 1929. However, it rebounded in the 1950s and 1960s when it operated as a Baptist Bible college. It was during that time that a substantial building program began. Much of the new building architecture was international style. At bottom left, we see Ganakis Hall, and that's the north and west elevations. The camera is facing to the southeast. The middle photo is the interior of the second floor corridor of Andrews Hall, and the camera there is facing north. And at the top right is the exterior of Andrews Hall, and that's the south and east elevations. And we're facing the main entrance. Our camera is facing to the north. At top left is Clearwater's Hall. That's the east elevation. The camera is facing west. At bottom right is also Clearwater's Hall, and that's the west elevation. And we're facing the entrance, and the camera is facing to the southeast. The middle view is again Clearwater's Hall, and we're looking at the central stair, and the camera there is facing east. The period of significance is 1889 to 1929, and also 1956 to 1967. The level of significance is state, and the National Register criteria are A and C. The areas of significance are education, architecture, and religion. We have 2 periods of significance with the property, which reflects its 2 major periods of development. Now, reading directly from the nomination, and I quote, "The Pillsbury Academy Campus Historic District boundary expansion at 315 Grove Avenue in Owatonna, Minnesota, is significant under criterion A in the areas of religion and education for its association with the development of the state's first Baptist Academy. The 2 periods of significance, 1889 to 1929 and 1956 to 1967, correlate with the peak development periods of the Baptist Preparatory School and the Baptist College. The district is also significant under criterion C in the area of architecture as an example of the educational evolution of late 19th and mid 20th century campus architecture and planning. The expanded district, comprised of 11 contributing buildings and 3 non-contributing buildings, retains sufficient integrity to convey the district's significance under criterion A and criterion C. We ask that the review board recommend that the boundary for the district be expanded. And we don't have any correspondence with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Is there anyone from our audience who would like to speak to the Pillsbury Academy? Amy, maybe?
Obviously, I'm in support of the nomination.
Good.
Yes, the owner is still running a school in all of these buildings and really needed to expand the boundaries of the district because it was a financial burden without historic tax credits to put sprinklers to bring all the buildings and the dormitories that were not in compliance and have been vacant. So the students now have lifts inside all the dormitories. There are 3 modern dormitories and then 2 houses and then the gymnasium as well. And they have sprinklers and lifts. And that really was the extent of the rehab in those buildings, but it was significant and roofing issues as well. So this was a huge, listing these buildings and expanding this district was significant for her finances. And maybe when it's all said and done, a conference someday when Owatonna becomes, is that right, Dennis? Does Owatonna need to be a CLG?
Yeah, become a CLG. Yeah.
Someday.
Someday. Keep our fingers crossed.
Thanks, Amy. I'm from Owatonna, and I really appreciate this. I grew up probably 3/4 of a mile from here, so this place has buildings younger than me. Anyone else from the audience have anything to say? If not, board members?
This is board member Koski. I have a question for Dennis or the applicant. Not sure who would know this, but in the photograph of the auditorium interior, you can clearly see the rose window at the back wall of the stage. And that baffles me that you would have a rose window admitting into the loft of the back of house of a stage. Is this an original condition or was this modified later? I couldn't see anything in the report.
The stage is a little later. And this was more of the chapel when the building was first built. And then when the campus, as it expanded and got dormitories, they did build this stage. I believe the stage, though, Philip, is maybe 1920s. And they've actually just uncovered this window. The covering on the stage side, so you can see it from the stage, but the owner just uncovered that. It had been covered since probably the 20s or 30s.
Amy, should we drop like a sentence in the nomination, perhaps?
Sure. And she, I think also we may have to update that photo because I think the sprinklers aren't in that photo. That may be from the older nomination.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
yeah, I
definitely.
think that would be appropriate since it would be good to let the future, anybody who's renovating the building know that there's nothing sacred about that wall.
Well, it is from the 1920s, though.
Well, yeah, yeah, but it's not original, right? So.
Right. Any other board members' comments? You know, because I grew up here, I'm going to have something to say. And Amy, I really appreciate what you wrote here on this, on the history of this place, because I'm kind of a history nut and I grew up 3/4 of a mile from here, but I didn't know a lot of this stuff, why it was called Pillsbury, that George Pillsbury had donated a lot of money to this place. I knew it was a military academy at one time, but I thought that was first and not part of it that came in and then left. For years, 50 years more, there was a cannon on the corner, and that cannon I see is now gone, but that was part of the history and kind of the rumors throughout downtown. Just to be able to get this story out about this place and share it with the community, I think is important, because we really didn't know growing up, at least for me, we didn't know what that was. I do have one small thing, and I'll send it to you, Dennis, and it's the use of the word outstate, and it's referring to Carleton College, and I believe Carleton College is in Minnesota. It's not outstate. That's my complaint about that.
Okay.
So that's on page 26, second paragraph, but I'll send
Okay.
you something on that.
Yeah, please.
Any other comments? If not, we'll look for a nomination.
This is Board Member Warner, and I will move to nominate this to the National Register.
Thank you, Board Member Warner. Is there a second?
This is Board Member Solomonson. I second.
Thank you. We will move to a vote. Board Member Decker.
Aye.
Board Member Dyer.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Koski.
Aye.
Board Member Levasseur.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Salmonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark. Aye. Board Member Warner.
Aye.
And the ayes have it. Next item is the Faribault Commercial Historic District, and I believe this is Ginny's.
It is. Thank you, Chair Stark. I'm sharing my screen. Eventually. It's impressive. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Fantastic. So this is the Faribault Commercial Historic District, a boundary increase and additional documentation in Faribault, Rice County. Dan Hoisington, Hoisington Preservation Consultants, is the author. The Faribault Commercial Historic District in Rice County was listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 1982. At the time, the district was found to be significant as a, quote, remarkably intact concentration of late 19th century buildings located in a regionally important center of trade and commerce, end quote. Contributing buildings within the original district were constructed between 1870 and 1898 and have Italianate and Queen Anne style detailing. At the left, we have Central Avenue, the 200 block, west elevations, camera facing southeast. And at the right, we have Central Avenue, also the 200 block, east elevations, camera facing southwest. I hit the button. It's taking its time. The original 1982 district contained 19 contributing resources and one non-contributing resource. in an area of approximately 4 acres. The expanded district includes approximately 24 additional acres of land and adds 65 contributing resources and 18 non-contributing resources. Counted among the new resources are 4 properties that are individually listed in the National Register and contribute to the significance of the district. On the left is the north side of 3rd Street Northwest, the south elevations, camera facing east. And on the right is the 300 block of Central Avenue, west elevations, camera facing southwest. The original district is now being amended and the boundaries increased to better reflect the historic commercial district's significance and breadth. The red box on the left is the approximate location of the district within Faribault. The original, expanded, and local district boundaries are all indicated on the map at right. Contributing buildings are shaded in gray. The district was originally listed under both Criterion A in the area of commerce and Criterion C in the area of architecture. The original period of significance for both criteria was 1870 to 1898. This document expands Criterion A through the post-World War II period. The new period of significance for the district in this area, in the area of commerce, is 1870 to 1970. On the left is the 400 block of Central Avenue, east elevations, camera facing northwest. And on the right, the 300 block of Central Avenue, west elevations, camera facing northeast. The period of significance under Criterion C remains unchanged. On the left is the 400 block of Central Avenue, west elevations, camera facing southeast. And on the right, the 400 block of Central Avenue, east elevations, camera facing southwest. The nomination includes revised and new descriptions and also notes changes to resources within the original boundary. All resources were reevaluated for their ability to contribute to one or both criteria. On the left is the 500 block of Central Avenue, east elevations, camera facing northwest. On the right is the 400 block of Central Avenue, west elevations, camera facing northeast. In the latter decades of the 19th century, Faribault grew from town to city. This growth was crowned by the arrival of the railroad in 1864, which triggered a commercial and construction boom that helps define the present-day district. On the left, we have the Hill Furniture Factory, east elevation. Our view is to the southwest. And on the right is Vogel's Creamery, west elevation, camera facing east. The downtown remained vibrant despite increased competition through the post-war period. It was not until 1975 and the opening of I-35 that consumers' focus shifted away from the downtown retail district. The bypass offered 3 exits well west of downtown, where new indoor shopping experiences became available. On the left is Oak's Department Store, the east elevation, camera facing northwest. At right is the E.M. Leach & Sons Lumber Company, south elevation, view to the northeast. On the left here, we have the Paramount Theater, the west elevation, camera facing east. On right is the Chase State Bank, west elevation, camera facing west. The blocks being nominated here serve as the primary commercial business district for the region from the mid-19th century to the mid-20th century. Historic businesses provided the economic focus of the community, offering goods and services ranging from drugstores to automobile dealerships. The development of this district reflects local commercial trends and also represents an important era in social clubs and fraternal organizations in Faribault. Here we see 2 historic photographs of Central Avenue. On the left is circa 1921, and on the right is 1940. The continuing strength of downtown encouraged change with new buildings and quote unquote improvements, reflecting business people's response to altered commercial realities. On the left, we see the Fleckenstein block, east elevation, view to the west, and on the right is the Central Clinic. On the left, in the Faribault Daily News, on the right, camera facing west. At left is the North States Power Building, west elevation, camera facing northeast, and at right, the Village Theater, south elevation, camera facing northeast. The periods of significance for this property are 1870 to 1970 under Criterion A and 1870 to 1898 under Criterion C. The level of significance is local. The National Register criteria are A and C. The areas of significance are architecture, commerce, politics and government, and industry. The period of significance under criterion C reflects that of the 1982 nomination. The additional documentation presented in this nomination has expanded the period of significance under criterion A. The area of significance of politics and government and industry relate to individually listed properties that are now within the district boundaries. Their inclusion on the form is a technical requirement of the National Park Service. For 100 years, Faribault's downtown was a historic center of commerce. The development of the district, including the vast array of building materials and styles, speak to the continued vibrancy of the commercial core. The architecture of the district continues to reflect Faribault's early commercial building styles. There are 3 pieces of correspondence related to this nomination. The first is from David Sawyer, Faribault Heritage Preservation Commission chairperson. David writes that the commission is, quote, proud to support the nomination of the Faribault Commercial Historic District to the National Register of Historic Places, end quote. Kelly Nygaard, the Faribault Main Street coordinator, echoes the commission's sentiments and is also, quote, proud to support the nomination of the Faribault Commercial Historic District, end quote. Finally, Mayor Kevin Voracek writes that he and the Faribault City Council believe the district meets the specified criteria, and they are also proud to support the nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there anyone from our audience who would like to speak to this? Daniel, maybe?
Yeah, I'll say a few words. It's a wonderful downtown. It's also fascinating because they've been trying to preserve it for 40 years with a local heritage preservation commission. And it's a tribute to the work that they've done to save the look and feel of this place. It's also interesting because the initial nomination was very focused on a 2-block area. And this really broadens the sense of what makes a downtown and all the things that have taken place since, well, 1898, which is what the original nomination was. And it's still a wonderful downtown and a sterling local commission that have been watching over this for 40 years.
Thank you, Daniel. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I have to zoom down my list of participants here. I don't see anybody raising a hand. So is there anyone from the board who would like to say something?
This is Board Member Warner. I just want to point out one quick discrepancy. So in the opening sheets for this particular nomination, it says that there are 18 non-contributing properties, but on section 7, page 1, at the very beginning paragraph under narrative description, it says there are 11 non-contributing resources, and I just wanted to point out that discrepancy.
Thank you very much. We'll make sure we handle that.
Thanks.
Any other board members?
I'd like to say something quick as a person from Faribault.
Sure.
What the heck? Well, I've been on the HPC all this time since the beginning of the nomination, and I think 65 properties is a lot of properties to get. I mean, each one has to be individually assessed, and Daniel's work and patience is easily measures up to the standards of sainthood. Let's put it that way. And it is an unusual downtown, and because of how intact it is, I can't explain. Some people just have a fetish for tearing down old buildings. Most people have a fetish for keeping them, but it's hard to win that battle. The acceptance of these and expanding the nomination that much, which is kind of an unusual thing, really broadens the opportunity for keeping the town what it once was. And so I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. And that was Carl Voles who was speaking. Just a reminder to introduce yourself if you're coming on. Thanks, Carl. I have memories because I grew up in Owatonna going to Faribault and shopping, and this is over 50 years ago. And the downtown now looks fantastic. The change, you can really see the love the community has for this area. We went to the Burkhart's Meyer shoe store, and it is still there, and that was really fun to see, although it did move. The one question I had is, and it's not really a question, it's just when the description of a farmer town, and it was about parking and that farmers couldn't figure out how to parallel park. I thought that was a very interesting thing. But it was nicely done, and Daniel, and the way you tell the story of people or the shops that were in there and the shop owners, it creates that community of the town. So well done. It was a lot of work on this. Any other comments? If not, we'll look for a nomination.
This is Board Member Warner. I will move to nominate this to the National Register.
Actually, it's an expansion, but yes.
Oh, sorry.
Is there a second?
Board Member Schulke, second.
Thank you, Board Member Schulke. We will move to a vote. Board Member Decker.
Aye.
Board Member Dyer.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Koski.
Aye.
Board Member Levasseur.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Salmonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark. Aye. Board Member Warner.
Aye.
And just checking if any other board members have joined us. Yep. The nomination has been approved. The next nomination we will look at is the Wyzata Section House. And Ginny, I believe that's also you.
It is. Y'all are stuck with me through the middle.
This
is
we
the
get
Wyzata.
Dennis.
This is the Wyzata Section House in Wyzata, Hennepin County. Lauren Anderson and Tamara Halverson-Lute are from New History are the authors. The Wyzata Section House is a two-story wood frame house located on the north shore of Lake Minnetonka, just south of downtown Wyzata at 378 Lake Street East. The house was built by the Great Northern Railway for use by section foremen. The historic railroad tracks of the Great Northern, now owned by BNSF Railway, are located just east of the building. From its construction in 1902 until 1962, the Wyzata Section House was owned and operated by the railway. At the time of the house's construction, the Great Northern was a transcontinental railroad line that stretched from St. Paul to Seattle. Here we see the north elevation of the house, the camera facing southwest, and at the left is a plat map of the area with the red box around the building. During the 20th century, railroads required consistent maintenance. To organize this maintenance, the Great Northern, like other railroad companies, divided its railroad network into divisions, subdivisions, and sections, and assigned men to section gangs under a foreman responsible for maintaining each section of the track. Section gangs were responsible for a variety of maintenance activities related to keeping the track operable and safe. Here we see the north elevation of the house, camera facing southeast, and at the right, we see the section house in 1910. Like other railroads, the Great Northern developed standardized building plans for various types of section houses. According to the nomination, the most widespread and iconic of these was the two-story section house. The stock plan for the Wyzata Section House can be seen on the left. On the right is the west elevation of the house, camera facing northeast. In order to keep up with the needs of foremen and their crews, and in response to needed maintenance, the railroad remodeled and expanded many of the two-story section houses along its routes during the 1920s and 30s. The Wyzata Section House, however, was not improved until 1944. The most significant changes consisted of the expansion of the lean-to addition, now the width of the house. the rearranging of interior walls, and the addition of a concrete foundation. A bathroom was also planned, but not installed until after World War II. Here we see the south elevation of the house, camera facing northwest, and at right are as-built plans showing the 1902 house in yellow and the completed 1944 addition and alterations in red. During the 1950s and 1960s, as railroads fell behind other modes of transportation, the Great Northern disposed of many of its section houses. Increased automation, which allowed for increased section sizes and smaller maintenance crews, encouraged the railroad to eliminate section houses, especially those located outside of towns. On the left is the first floor dining room, camera facing northwest, and on the right is the first floor living room, camera facing northwest. In 1962, when the last Wyzata section foreman retired, and the house was purchased, in 1962, when the last Wyzata section foreman retired, the house was purchased by the current owners of the neighboring Lakeshore property. In the summer of 1963, the house was again remodeled. Alterations included a small one-story addition with concrete block foundation and a covered porch added to the south elevation of the 1944 addition. These alterations extended the house approximately 6 feet to the south. Here we see the second level bedroom. On the right, the camera is facing northeast, and on the left, the camera is facing northwest. Of the 21 section houses, railroad records confirm that at least 15 were retired between 1936 and 1963, suggesting that the Wyzata section house could have been the last operating section house on the line to Willmar. This is likely due to the scenic location of the building on the lakeshore. Here we see the second level bedroom. On left, the camera is facing northeast. On right, the camera is facing northwest. The periods of significance for this property are 1902 and 1943 to 1945. The level of significance is local. The National Register criterion is C, and the area of significance is architecture. The periods of significance represent the 2 building campaigns sponsored by the railroad. The building meets registration requirements outlined in the multiple property documentation form, Railroads in Minnesota, 1862 to 1956, because it was constructed using standard company plans designed and associated with a significant railroad. The Wyzata section house is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places as a representative of the standard construction and renovation designs of the Great Northern Railway's iconic 2-story section houses. We have 4 pieces of correspondence for this nomination. The first is from Jeffrey Dahl, City Manager, writing on behalf of the City of Wyzata, dated February 25th, 2021. Mr. Dahl writes that the listing in the National Register of Historic Places would, quote, solidify the significance of the section foreman house and be a proper culmination of many years of diligent work completed to help preserve and promote the history of the house, end quote. The second piece of correspondence was received February 16th, 2021. It's from Andrew Mullen, Executive Board Chair of the Wyzata Conservancy. Mr. Mullen writes that he and the Wyzata Conservancy strongly support the nomination. On February 1st, 2021, Aaron J. Peterson, President of the Wyzata Historical Society, also wrote to support the nomination of the section house. And finally, Dan Gustafsson, Chair of the Wyzata Heritage Preservation Board, wrote to express the board's support for the nomination on March 4th, 2021.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak?
Good evening, members. This is Andrew Mullen from the Wyzata Conservancy and speaking on behalf of the Conservancy in the City of Wyzata. Just wanted to chime in to endorse this project. It's the culmination of years and years of work from our Historical Society and Heritage Preservation Board, and we strongly endorse the preservation of this structure, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Andrew. Anyone else from the audience? If not, I'll open it up to board members. Any board members would like to say anything?
It looks like Board Member Solomonson has her hand up.
I do. Thank you. This is a nomination of a structure that I might have walked right by, and it weaves such a rich and fascinating history around it that I am quite excited by the prospect of it being preserved, and I'm wondering what the plans are for it.
Thank you, member, for the question. This is Andrew Mullen speaking. Our plan is to use the structure and the surrounding property around it for what we're calling a Lakeshore Learning Center for the purpose of historic education about the town and the connection to the railroad, as well as to the topic of environmental stewardship around lake ecology. So the outside area, which is about an acre around it, plus the structure will be used for the Lakeshore Learning Center purpose.
That sounds great. Any other board member comments? If not, we'll look for a nomination.
This is Board Member Decker, and I would like to, oh. Bad. I'd like to approve the motion.
We got you, John. Is there a second?
This is Board Member Solomonson, second.
Thank you. We'll move to a vote. Board Member Decker.
Aye.
Board Member Dyer.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Koski.
Aye.
Board Member Levasseur.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Yes.
Board Member Salmonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark. Aye. Board Member Warner.
Aye.
And we have another unanimous nomination. Thank you very much. This is a cool project. The next one we have is Ginny again talking about the Farmers Union Central Exchange second headquarters building.
I am enjoying the long building titles this time. So this is the Farmers Union Central Exchange second headquarters building in South St. Paul, Ramsey County. Andrea Pisa Deco Cultural Services LLC is the author. Located at 1185 Concord Street North in South St. Paul, the Farmers Union Central Exchange second headquarters building was designed by the prominent Minnesota architectural firm LRB Architects in the mid-century modern style. It was constructed between 1955 and 1957, with rear additions in 1963 and 1971. Here we see the headquarters building, camera facing southwest. The building features many of the hallmark traits of the modern style: a rectilinear horizontal form, flat roof, horizontal ribbon windows, projecting cantilevered entry, recessed glass wall at the ground level, and pilotis supporting the building mass. However, the architects blended the stark form with warm building materials, and the north and south elevations feature a bold color palette with geometric pattern of porcelain enameled steel panels, finding inspiration in multiple early modern styles to create a unique expression. Here we say the headquarters building, camera looking northwest. Here are two views of the 1971 addition at the rear of the building, which subsumed the earlier 1963 addition. The addition was designed by the original architects. It is subordinate to the main building in mass and is constructed with matching brick. The second headquarters building was constructed within an unoccupied area on the west side of Concord Street North as an expansion of the South St. Paul plant of the Farmers Union Central Exchange, which was located across Concord Street adjacent to the Chicago Great Western, Chicago Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad corridors. You can see the building here in the red square rectangle. The Farmers Union Central Exchange was organized in St. Paul in January of 1931 to be a standalone wholesale farm supply cooperative. As farming became more mechanized and farmers began to rely on trucking for delivery, the exchange began to offer oil and gas products. As a wholesaler, the exchange could offer member cooperatives lower prices than could be had from the major oil companies, which were also reluctant to deliver rurally. In 1956, its membership included 850 farm supply cooperatives, or approximately 275,000 farmers in Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. On the left is a detail of the entrance, camera looking southwest, and on right is the mat in the entry vestibule, camera looking west. In early 1932, the exchange located to South St. Paul. For the first 2 years, the operation consisted of generally industrial buildings west of the railroad tracks. In 1934, Ellerby Architects was hired to construct the first headquarters building on the east side of Concord Street. The building was intended to combine an oil blending plant, warehouse space, and office space in a single building. The building was expanded in 1941 and 1947 to meet growing needs, and as was the rest of the campus. On left is the lobby, looking north-northwest. On right is the first floor elevator lobby, camera looking south-southeast. In 1952, the organization had a pressing need to expand the plant and office building yet again. Instead of adding to the original headquarters, a new and separate office building was constructed to accommodate the approximately 300 home office employees. The first headquarters was converted to warehouse space. Ellerby Architects was hired to design a modern building for the prominent company. At the left, we see the mosaic panel looking west, and on the right is the same panel in 1958 with the wooden figures in place. Public spaces within the building were simply designed yet richly detailed, in keeping with modernist ideals. Materials include terrazzo, marble, tile, and vinyl plastic that match the exterior panels. Here we see 3 views of the building's circulation with original materials. At left is the north stairwell in the basement, camera looking north. At center is the basement level hallway, camera looking south. And at right is the elevator at the 3rd floor, camera looking west. Here we see at right the corridor to the east auditorium, the cameras facing north, and at left the auditorium main room. The view is toward the rear wall, camera looking south. Office space within the building is largely open and utilitarian, allowing for flexibility in use and furniture arrangement. Boardrooms and office suites on the 4th floor retain some built-in storage. On the left, we see the 4th floor boardroom, camera looking west, and at right, a boardroom within the office in 1957. Fluorescent lighting, drop ceilings, and HVAC fixtures are original to the building. Here we see the 3rd floor, camera looking south, and on the right is the commodities department in 1957, showing the open office space. In 1971, the exchange, by then Cenex, determined that new facilities were needed and moved to nearby Inver Grove Heights. Over the next 2 decades, warehouses in the industrial complex were demolished. However, Cenex retained a presence in the 2nd headquarters building until 1992. On the left, we see the 2nd floor, camera looking north, and on the right is a photograph also on the 2nd floor in 1957. The period of significance for this property is 1957. The level of significance is local. The National Register criterion is C, and the area of significance is architecture. The period of significance is 1957, the year in which the construction of the building was completed. The Farmers Union Cooperative 2nd Headquarters building is a striking example of modern architecture. The design utilizes the tenets of the style while incorporating unique and rich detailing. The building maintains excellent exterior and interior integrity and is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. We have no correspondence for this property.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there any comments or anyone want to speak to this from our audience? If not, I will open it up to the board members. Are there any board members who have anything to say?
This is Board Member Warner, and I was wondering what happened to the figures from the mosaic.
I am not sure that Andrea Pisa is.
I'm here.
You are. Andrea, do you have any idea?
I don't, sorry, not talking well. I don't know for sure. What I heard was that they may have taken them with them to the Inver Grove Heights building, which was which was the third headquarters. But I haven't been able to confirm that, so.
Thank you. I was just curious, and wonderful job on the nomination.
Thank you.
Any other comments from board members or anyone else?
This is Board Member Koski. I am very excited to see this coming forward with a nomination. It's a structure that I've seen before, and could barely believe that it existed. It has so many typical features of mid-century modern architecture, or I guess, international style. But it also has such distinctive, unique features that really you don't find in other buildings of this period. So I gladly support this wholeheartedly. I do have a question since we're looking at the photo of this north elevation. Unlike the south elevation where the mullions are all black, here it seems like there's maybe a contrasting mullion finish. Maybe it's clear anodized aluminum. Are those more recent additions?
Are you speaking about here?
It's on the end wall, so all the windows have like a white frame around them.
Silver.
Yeah.
It looks like it's there in the historic photo.
It does.
Those are window frames, aren't they? Since the other windows are anodized.
And then if we look at the south elevation, we don't see those.
Going back, sorry to make everyone dizzy.
Yeah, sorry.
There are no windows.
Oh, they're just black.
Right, they're just, sorry, this is Andrea. They're just black porcelain enameled steel panels.
All right, okay. That solves the mystery for me. Thank you.
Good eye.
Thanks, Philip. Any other comments?
This is Board Member Solomonson. I have a quick one. I too am very excited to see this coming forward. And one of the things I appreciated about the nomination is that it opened up a whole world of what a co-op does, and it introduces us to really a very wonderful building, but also at the same time, it also reveals something new about the architect and his concern with co-ops. And so this is such a wonderful multi-layered nomination.
Thank you, Andrea. I had the opportunity to work on a building we saw a few years ago, the Minnesota Mutual Life, which was done by the same architects about 2 years before this. And there's so many similarities between it. It's a very well-built building, probably if it's the same details. The windows, strip windows on that building were in great shape. These looked very good here. They were insulated and weren't failing. What was there? Other thing I was going to say about it was, and it even had an art piece in the originally in the lobby. So there's a lot of that stuff that's there. The interesting thing when I had worked on this, I noticed it here, is the ceilings, the acoustic tile ceilings. It's a 12 by 12 tile on gypboard, and the gypboard is suspended. And that is because suspended acoustic ceilings didn't come, they were invented, but they didn't come into production until 1958. So this is one of the last periods, and those light fixtures and the strips are exactly like they were in the Minnesota Mutual building. So very interesting, great nomination. Any other comments, or is there a motion?
This is Board Member Koski. I would like to move that we advance this
Thank you, Philip. Is there a second?
This is Board Member Warner. I will second.
Thank you. We will move to a vote. Board Member Decker.
Aye.
Board Member Dyer.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Koski.
Aye.
Board Member Levasseur.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Salmonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark. Aye. And Board Member Warner.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we move to the Calvary Baptist Church with Jenny.
This is my last one, y'all. Calvary Baptist Church is in Minneapolis in Hennepin County. Alexa McDowell from AK Consulting is the author. This nomination was funded using the Minnesota Historical and Cultural Heritage Grant Program. Calvary Baptist Church is located at 2608 Blaisdell Avenue South in Minneapolis. The building is comprised of 3 sections constructed between the years of 1889 and 1928. The 1889 chapel was designed by Warren H. Hayes and placed in service just 6 months before the architect's death. The auditorium, completed in 1903, was also designed by Hayes, but constructed under the direction of Harry Wild Jones. The southernmost element of the church building is the Parish House, designed by Jones and placed into service in 1928. The view here is of the north and east elevations, camera looking southwest. Warren H. Hayes was a leading designer of churches in the United States. In the years after establishing a practice in Minneapolis in 1881, Hayes designed some of the city's most significant church buildings. His designs reflect the prevailing popularity of the Richardsonian Romanesque style, and he is particularly noted for the designs of some of the earliest churches to use the, quote, diagonal auditorium, quote, unquote, plan, an adaptation of the Akron plan that became widely disseminated through various period publications and, as a result, came into use across the country. Here is a view of the north and west elevations, camera looking southeast. Harry Wild Jones was himself an accomplished architect as well as a member of the Calvary Baptist Church. Jones worked in Minneapolis from 1885 until 1918 and is considered among the state's most significant architects. Here we see a view of the west and south elevations, camera looking northeast. Calvary Baptist Church Chapel was completed and opened for religious services on Sunday, February 17, 1889. The new building provided space for Sunday school and seating for 500 people at services, as well as ample room for social gatherings. The area where the church sits, now considered part of the inner city, was at the time characterized by scattered houses and open agricultural land. Here we see a photograph of the chapel, 1889. And at the right, the blue dot indicates the location of Calvary Baptist Church, and you can see the red lines indicating the city limits of Minneapolis. Hayes introduced the diagonal auditorium plan in his Minneapolis commissions, but the plan became popular across the country for its acoustical qualities and unobstructed views. The diagonal auditorium was also conducive for use with the Akron plan, a configuration that allowed the auditorium to be physically opened to the education space so both sets of congregants could participate in worship. The first portion of Calvary Baptist Church, the chapel, was to become a community space adjoining the later auditorium. Here we see a photograph of the auditorium at the first floor, camera looking southwest, and on the right we see the interior of the auditorium in 1902. The oversized pocket doors leading from the auditorium to the chapel and the perimeter classrooms on both the first and balcony levels were designed to work in concert with the auditorium space. This is in keeping with the Akron plan. Here we see the auditorium at the first floor, camera looking northwest, and at right is a floor plan post 1928. You can see all 3 phases of construction. Warren H. Hayes died unexpectedly in September of 1899, with the design plans of the Calvary Church building completed, but only the chapel in service. Jones used Hayes's drawings to complete the building. It's unclear whether Jones conferred with Hayes regarding the design or if he merely proceeded with the project using the fully formed plans prepared by Hayes. While the latter is more likely, it does appear that Jones built upon Hayes's designs with a minimum of alterations. At left, we see the original chapel space at the first floor, camera looking south-southwest, and at right is roughly the same view, only from the second floor balcony, camera looking south-southwest. The Parish House, attached to the south side of the church sanctuary, was under construction in 1927 and placed into service in 1928. The addition provided classrooms, a small kitchen, a reading room, and offices. By the time the Parish House was constructed, the neighborhood within which the church had been established had evolved from a remote, undeveloped location outside the Minneapolis city limits to one that was densely developed and quite fashionable. On the right, we see a view of the original chapel at the first floor, camera looking southwest, and at the left we see the chapel interior circa 1890. However, the church was subject to the same pressures felt by other post-World War II institutions. Post-World War II. In 1959, a special committee was formed to consider the possibility of relocating to the suburbs, following the trend of many congregations in the mid-20th century. Ultimately, the congregation decided that there was a need for inner-city churches and a desire to serve the community. That decision was immediately proved when, in 1960, the church assumed a larger role in providing programming for the young people of the congregation and neighborhood, hiring a youth director for that purpose. On left is a view of the pastor's study, camera looking southeast, and on right is a view of the entrance foyer corridor, seeing the light court above, camera looking west. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, the neighborhood began seeing some resurgence. Between the end of the Second World War and 1977, more than 70 congregations had left the inner city of St. Paul and Minneapolis for suburban locations. In contrast, Calvary Baptist prepared to celebrate 100 years in the Whittier neighborhood. At left is the first floor education wing, camera looking southwest, and at right is the basement level use space, camera looking southwest. The church continues its inner city mission today, existing amid the ongoing neighborhood renaissance. The 141-year-old church body remains engaged as the oldest active congregation in the Whittier neighborhood. At left is the first floor conference room in the original chapel, camera looking east, and at right, at the basement level, is the dining and assembly room, camera looking northwest. The period of significance for this property is 1889 to 1928. The level of significance is local, National Register Criterion C, area of significance is architecture, and the property meets Criterion Consideration A. The period of significance encompasses the dates of construction for the original chapel and subsequent additions. The property meets Criteria Consideration A because it derives its significance from its architecture, not from its use as a religious building. The property is a well-preserved, noteworthy representative work of the architects Warren H. Hayes and Harry Wild Jones's church designs. Calvary Baptist Church illustrates both architects' execution of the Romanesque forms in brick and the adaptation of the Akron plan. As such, it is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. There is one piece of correspondence related to this property. Rob Skalecki, staff at the Minneapolis Department of Community Planning and Economic Development, writes on behalf of the Minneapolis Heritage Preservation Commission that the commission, quote, supports the nomination and agrees that the Calvary Baptist Church is historically significant under National Register Criterion C for architecture, end quote.
Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
I just heard a thunder boomer outside, so it's
very
starting to
loud
rain
here.
here in the Twin Cities again. Is there anyone from our audience who would like to speak? If not, we will open it up to the board members as well.
This is Board Member Schulte. I have a question, and maybe you architects can help me. Section 7, page 14, it talks about there were interior alterations around 2000. to the chapel. And it says the impact on integrity was minimized by the method of enclosure. And I still don't quite understand what does enclosure mean. Can anyone answer me that? By building walls that are largely glazed. I just couldn't quite
Hi,
wrap my head around
this is
that.
Alexa McDowell. I'm the
I'm going
historian.
to swing back up to the picture.
I wrote the nomination. So what I was trying to get at is when you see these spaces on the first floor, instead of creating a solid wall, which would have completely closed off what had been open to the center space, they kept them largely glazed. So when you're in that space, you still have a sense of the volume both up and outward toward the north, I guess that would be. So that was the point I was trying to make.
And Alexa, you are referring to the doors and windows into the individual classroom spaces, correct?
Exactly. So those were more a column space as opposed to enclosed space. So they did make an alteration of that in order to use those for office spaces. Does that clarify, Mr. Schulke?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And they did a nice job on that too. The trim
Yeah, the
looks,
quality of work is very good.
Yes.
and they're keeping this place up. Any other comments?
This is Board Member Warner, and I actually have another question related to integrity, and this is probably more aimed at maybe Ginny and Dennis. So according to this, it says, undoubtedly the elevated traffic levels that exist today adversely impact integrity of setting. But any level of diminished integrity in that regard is counterbalanced by retention of the church's relationship with its neighborhood. When it comes to setting, how much change in setting gets to a point where it now negatively affects the property itself?
I love your questions, Board Member Warner. Okay, so setting, like all aspects of integrity, we need to consider what the property is significant for. So with regard to the aspect of setting on an architectural property, at what point do we fail to understand the architecture and the significance of the property and its architecture as the setting changes? So because the architecture is what's significant in this particular case, the setting would have to change fairly dramatically before we don't understand the Romanesque forms and the Akron plan and the work of the architects. However, it was noted in the nomination because any change to setting, subtle or not subtle, is technically a difference in integrity. In this case, I think, quite frankly, Alexa's being very thorough, which I appreciate, but a change in traffic patterns is unlikely to affect the significance of this property. If this property were eligible for something else, perhaps it was a rural schoolhouse, the increased amount of traffic and the addition of space, the addition of buildings around it would impact our understanding of its significance, because a rural schoolhouse is by definition rural. The increased urban relationship of this building to its surroundings doesn't diminish our understanding of its architecture. Does that answer your question?
That does. It's one of those subtleties that when you read something, you just like, okay, I have a question now, and wanted to know an answer. I sort of thought of the movie Up, where there's one little house and everything around it is skyscrapers. And I'm like, oh, but isn't the house itself still worth something?
It is still worth something and would potentially be eligible for listing if we were listing it for its architecture. However, if we were listing it because it was a farmhouse, we would have lost significant integrity of setting. It's an excellent example.
Thank you.
Great question, Mary.
As always, my answer is it depends.
It depends.
Thanks.
Depends how we look at it. Our next nomination is going to be a very similar situation where the setting is changing, but is still in an urban environment on a corner. So with the J Case building. Any other comments from board members or anyone from our audience? I think one of the advantages of sitting on the board is being able to read these and to learn how religion sometimes played an important part in our development and how it grew and changed in the different denominations. The fact that George Pillsbury, as a philanthropist, had his foot in Owatonna earlier this evening, and now he's right here donating some money to this building too. That was another interesting aspect of it. So, and the Akron plan on this was very well described. So, thank you. Is there a motion to nominate this building?
This is Board Member Warner. I will so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Board Member Schulke, second.
Thank you, Board Member Schulke. We will move to a vote unless there's any other questions. Board Member Decker.
Aye.
Board Member Dyer.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Koski.
Aye.
Board Member Levasseur.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Salmonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark. Aye. Board Member Warner.
Aye.
And we have another unanimous nomination. Our next nomination here is the J.I. Case building, and this moves to Dennis. Are you ready, Dennis?
I am. I'm just gonna pull up my PowerPoint here. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the J.I. Case Company. It's in Minneapolis, Hennepin County. The authors are Charlene Royce and Jennifer Repford from Hess Royce and Company. Constructed in 1907, the J.I. Case Company is a largely square multi-story building that has a wood post and beam structure. The building is located at the intersection of Park and Washington Avenues near downtown Minneapolis. And here we're looking at the west and north facades, and our view is to the southeast. Although somewhat difficult to see in the map at left, the building is roughly north of the Viking Stadium, which we see in the middle of the image. The J.I. Case building is outlined in turquoise. The map at right shows the block hosting the building. Again, the building is outlined in turquoise. The J.I. Case Company was one of the leading implement dealers, and the building at Washington and Park functioned as its Minneapolis branch office. It was the regional marketing and distribution point for the company during a time of transformative change in the agricultural industry, which led to substantial growth and production in the country. Its location at this prominent corner of Minneapolis helped transform an area riddled by crime and vice. The notorious, quote, Fish Alley courtyard that attracted much of the crime was demolished with construction of this building, substantially improving the surroundings. And at left, we are viewing the north elevation. The camera is facing south. The middle image is of the entrance to the building at the west facade. And the photo at lower right is the west and south elevations. Our view there is to the northeast. Interior views. At top left is a shot of the first floor. The view is to the southwest. The bottom left is a photo of the freight elevator shaft. The camera there is facing south. At top right, we are looking at the 3rd floor. The camera here is also facing south. And at the bottom right, we see the fire doors in the basement. Our view here is to the southwest. The illustration to the left is an advertisement for Case, quote, kerosene tractors from a 1919 issue of Minnesota Farm Review. It features Old Abe, an eagle that was a symbol of the company. And at right is a newspaper photograph from 1907 when the building was completed. You can see Old Abe at the roof. Our period of significance is 1907 to 1958. The level of significance is local. The National Register criterion is A. The areas of significance are commerce and community planning and development. The period of significance for the J.I. Case building begins with its completion in 1907 and ends in 1958, the last full year that Case occupied the property. Reading from the nomination, quote, the J.I. Case Threshing Machine Company building is significant for its role in commerce as the regional marketing and distribution point for one of the nation's biggest farm implement manufacturers. The property exemplifies the industry's adaptation to changes during a transformative period in American agriculture and society, unquote. But more, and again quoting the nomination, with its prestigious occupant in a corner site on busy Washington Avenue, the building was a strong endorsement of the area's transformation into a reputable business district. For these reasons, the building is eligible for listing in the National Register. And we have one piece of correspondence. In a March 12, 2021 letter, John Smoley with the Minneapolis Community Planning and Development Department notes that the Minneapolis Heritage Preservation Commission supports nomination of this building to the National Register. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak? Charlene?
Yes, I was just trying to click in here and not get my dog too excited. Thank you. And thank you, Dennis, for that good overview of the property. I co-authored the nomination with Jenna Renfort from Hess Rice. She did the description, I did the Section 8 historical significance section. And I've always thought this was a really handsome building, but the history really blew me away once I started digging into it. It was really challenging to untangle the cases and the threshing company and the plow and then the dealers versus the branch houses. But I was really excited to learn all about the importance of the implement business in Minneapolis. I hadn't really realized that. And I was also very intrigued by William Eustace and the early 20th century urban renewal effort. I just can't seem to get away from urban renewal and love the stories of Fish Alley. And there's so much more about Fish Alley that I want to explore. So anyway, I'm here to answer questions if you have any.
Charlene, I've got a question for you. The Fish Alley then is the back corner of what we're seeing here, right? That was in it, and then...
Yeah, if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, it was basically that part over there. It kind of bisected the block facing Washington, which is what was, yeah, we're standing in basically on Washington taking this photograph.
I had really not heard about that or the level of it. So yeah, definitely fascinating. Are there any questions for Charlene?
Well, Charlene, I really enjoyed this. This is Chris Schulke. The application, the social history behind Fish Alley is just fascinating. And I hope there's more out there because it's probably kind of a hidden history. And then also, you know, coming from an agricultural area and the importance of agriculture to greater Minnesota, to, you know, rural counties, this is just a, you know, it's a fascinating story of American innovation and ingenuity and manufacturing. And, you know, it's just a truly great Minnesota story. And I love the building. And I'd like to have a little more discussion like we talked about last time, or last nomination, about integrity of setting. I don't know if anyone wants to discuss that, but I would like to hear more about that conversation. Thank you.
Pop in on that? Because I did think about integrity a lot. For one thing, there are a number of buildings from that new warehouse district that are still standing. And also, most of the development in that area has kind of the massing of earlier warehouse buildings. The Milwaukee Road Depot is just down the street. Washington Avenue, as one of the historic photos shows, was busy back in the 50s. It's just a really busy kind of street, and it still is. It's a major artery. So to me, the integrity of location was not really all that bad. It still maintained a lot of that.
And Board Member Schulke, I would second what Charlene is saying. I think the setting overall is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not questioning it at all. It's a great nomination. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, the massing of the buildings, it seems to be compatible, and so I was grateful for that.
If I recall, this is just out of the local historic district. Is that right? Or it's not the warehouse district on the north side. This is south. So.
Yep, this is not in the warehouse district. This is not in the Minneapolis warehouse district, and it's not in the St. Anthony Falls historic district either, which is actually very close to this as well.
Right. Any other questions? I appreciate the farm implements side of this thing too, Charlene, what you said. And I didn't realize Case put such an emphasis. It was almost like a Rolls Royce in how they built their equipment. That was fascinating.
Yeah.
But deep down, I really miss that spaghetti and meatball meal inside there. So.
In case you guys don't know what Vice Chair Stark is talking about, it used to be the old spaghetti factory.
Oh.
And it was the meeting place for lunches during the Mill City Museum construction, which I was a part of. And so we were over there quite a bit. And it was warm inside. Any other comments?
I have a comment.
Sure.
I think it's a really interesting history. It's the first time I'm kind of seeing any sort of like women's history. Specifically on page 8, there was, 50 disorderly women that lived in that block. And, a lot of times women's history is disentangled from the history of commerce, particularly the ways, sex workers, who a lot of time are women, also have a role in in industry in a particular way. So I really appreciated that because too often women's history gets erased, especially when we start talking about crime and vice, and I like reading about it as being part of the story.
Thanks, Elliot.
Yep.
Any other comments?
John, Steve Olson here. As a farm family with some Case equipment stored in some sheds, I would like to make a motion to advance this nomination.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. We'll have to talk about those Case equipment. I have a friend with one too. Is there a second?
This is Board Member Decker. Seconded.
Thank you, John. Any other comments? We will move to a vote. Board Member Decker.
Aye.
Board Member Dyer.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Koski.
Aye.
Board Member Levasseur.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Salmonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark. Aye. And Board Member Warner.
Aye.
And the nomination passes. We will move on to the next one with Dennis, the nursing home in St. Paul. Nurses home, excuse me, not nursing home. Very close, Freudian slip.
Okay, yes, this is the nurses' home. It's in St. Paul, Ramsey County. The author is Mina Adset from Adset Architecture and Planning. The nurses' home is located within the city of St. Paul on Dorothy Day Place, at the foot of the hill that slopes down from the Minnesota Historical Society building. It is an L-shaped building and is owned by Catholic Charities. It is adjacent to St. Joseph's Hospital. And here we are looking at the west elevation. Our view is to the east. The image at left depicts the location of the building in St. Paul by the inverted teardrop. At right is a closer in view. The nurse's home is in the lower left corner of the image. It is the L-shaped building. The 5-story nurse's home is a modest building, sheathed in red brick and features a flat roof and brick parapet. At left, we're looking at the north elevation, and our view there is to the south. And the middle bottom is the south elevation, and we're looking north. And at top right is the east elevation. We're looking to the northwest. Here we see the entrance at the west front, which features one of the few architectural embellishments found on the building, a somewhat elaborate entrance surround. The moniker nurse's home is incised above the entrance door. There's considerable woodwork within the building. At top left, we see the double doors that lead into the building from the entrance. At bottom middle, we see a wood column at the first floor parlor. The top right are the wood entrance doors to the parlor. And at bottom right is millwork, which is typical for the resident rooms. At left, we're viewing the terrazzo treads of the stairway, and the middle image represents a typical residence room. The photo at right is a typical corridor in the building. The nurse's home was a constituent to nearby St. Joseph's Hospital. It was a facility that provided training in the nursing profession at a time when women had limited career choices. Students at the nurse's home spent time in classrooms and laboratories, in addition to their practical work at the hospital. As noted in the nomination, quote, registered nurses that graduated from the St. Joseph's Hospital School of Nursing found work in hospitals, schools, public health agencies, and in teaching, unquote. At left, we have a historic image of nurses standing at the entrance of the nurse's home. And at right is an employee handbook that speaks to St. Joseph's Hospital and the nurse's home. Our period of significance is 1926 to 1945. The level of significance is local. National Register criteria is A, and the areas of significance are education and social history. The period of significance for the building begins when the building was constructed and continues until 1945, when the School for Nursing was transferred to the College of St. Catherine. As explained in the nomination, nurse's home is, I should say, quote, nurse's home is the last remaining early 20th century building associated with St. Joseph's Hospital, the first hospital in Minnesota. The nurse's home housed an open and affordable professional program for women when there was few professional options available to them. The training offered at the nurse's home allowed for generations of nursing professionals to practice in hospitals, schools, and public health agencies, unquote. The nurse's home is eligible for listing in the National Register. And we have one piece of correspondence for this building. It is from Catholic Charities, which owns the building. And Catholic Charities does not wish that this property be listed in the National Register and has objected to the nomination. As a result, the property cannot be formally entered into the National Register. So what we're doing tonight, we're voting on the nurse's home, whether or not it qualifies for the National Register, but even if it qualifies, we can't actually list it in the National Register. Instead, what we are doing is called a determination of eligibility. In other words, we're saying, okay, even though that this building cannot be placed in the National Register because of this owner objection, we're still saying that it's eligible for listing in the National Register. So at some future date, if the owner of the property decides to list the property in the National Register, we can just go right to the keeper of the National Register and say, hey, the owner has lifted the objection. So we can place the property directly in the National Register without having to go through this process again. And, maybe at some future date, the owner, perhaps sells the property too, and that future owner may lift the objection. So that's what we're doing here tonight with this.
Okay. Dennis, a question on that. Was the nomination prepared by the owner?
It was prepared by another organization. Mina, are you here tonight?
Yeah, and I can talk about it for a minute. This is Mina adds it, and I represent Aon, which is a nonprofit housing provider, and they do have a purchase agreement with Catholic Building, but it's contingent on receiving enough financing to make the project become real. So Catholic Charities is working with Aon to get the building sold. But what Catholic Charities, is nervous about is, locking this building into the historic register at this point. It was being marketed to some extent as a tear down when it was first going on the market. So, which is, what has happened, Catholic Charities is rebuilt just right across the street from this building is their nice new campus where they tore down buildings not of similar age to build a new campus. But right now, this building could be reutilized for affordable housing, quite easily. It's been, it's had a history of being housing since it was built in the 1920s, and it could be, modified with, keeping the integrity in place. And Aon has been successful on several buildings, both in St. Paul and in the tax credits along with low income housing credits to save the buildings and provide housing. So it's but at the same time, the property hasn't been formally transferred yet. I know Jen Small is on from Aon. Do you want to say anything, Jen?
Thanks, Mina. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I work on Aon's housing development team. We're in very close contact with Catholic Charities. We actually helped them pen the objection letter, as strange as that sounds. As a part of this process, it's a long and winding road to get affordable housing to happen. So we are working very closely with Catholic Charities, exactly as Maya described, to get the financing in place so that Aon can purchase the building. We know that is we like to see it as eminent. Part of the piece that is going to be critical to making this building into the affordable housing that we'd like to turn it into is a tax credit application process, which happens in July. And to strengthen our application for getting that important source of funding, having it designated as a historic property is going to bring financing to the project that we absolutely need to make it happen. With this designation from you all and working with Catholic Charities, we're actually looking at amending our purchase agreement so that we can have some more language in there that basically says that Catholic Charities will remove their objection letter at the time that we get that financing, which we do anticipate securing in the next year or so, which is a typical cycle for getting affordable housing to happen. One thing I'm really compelled by, and I've been compelled or folks that I've been speaking to the project about are very, very excited about is the fact that this was a landing spot in St. Paul for folks, as we described in our application, that, you know, didn't have tons of professional opportunities for women back in the day. And Aon is a very established provider of affordable housing for more than just women. It's everybody that needs affordable housing in the Twin Cities. We know it's a very severe need. So we're hoping that we can make that happen at this building as well. Happy to answer any questions too that come up along the way.
Thank you, Jen. I think this is a perfect fit for Aon. And it makes sense to do that. The historic tax credits would definitely help. Are there any questions for Jen or anyone else? If not, I guess we would look for a motion to approve the determination of eligibility of nurses' home. Is that right, Dennis, to the way I said that?
Yep, that's absolutely right. You know, we often call it a DOE. You're absolutely right. That's what it is, determination of eligibility.
DOE is too much like DOA.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
Is there a second?
This is Board Member Warner. I will second.
Thank you, Board Member Warner. Any other comments or questions? If not, we'll move to our vote, our final vote. The Board Member Decker.
Aye.
Board Member Dyer.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Koski.
Aye.
Board Member Levasseur.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Salmonson. Board Member Salmonson.
Aye.
There we go. Got you that time. Board Member Stark. Aye. And Board Member Warner.
Aye.
Thank you all. This approves the determination of eligibility. I believe this is our last thing. I know Amy had some closing words she would like to say. Would you like to do that now?
I did really quickly, Chair, thank you. I lost my notes at the beginning of the meeting of a couple announcements that I had forgotten and have since remembered. But the first announcement that I just wanted to share with the board, many of you may have seen a Gov Delivery message that went out to all of anyone that is subscribed to SHPO's Gov Delivery last week, that we have made a decision along with our host city of Stillwater to have a second virtual conference this year in September. And so we talked with the staff person, Abby from Stillwater, and she had been in communication with her city and HPC members, and we all felt that it was the best thing to do. So we have made that decision to move forward with a virtual our Preserve Minnesota conference in September. So you got save the dates, and also a call for proposals. If you didn't all see that, we would just encourage board members to think about proposal submissions as well. I forget when that deadline is due, but we can get that if you all didn't, if there's some of you that didn't get the Gov Delivery message that went out last week from our office. So essentially with that virtual decision we made for September, just want to let the board members know too that we are planning to have our state review board meetings through this year, through this calendar year in a virtual format as well. You know, we have to kind of be thinking about some of these things ahead of time, and we just felt it was the safest and practical thing to do at this point as we make some decisions. So just wanted to let board members know. And then my last announcement, we kicked off the meeting so quickly with our big agenda that we forgot to introduce the staff that are here and made this whole meeting possible. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of working with the authors and the planning for the presentations, and it's not the mailings anymore, but it's getting, you know, the meeting platform ready and all the materials ready. So I just want to give a shout out to our National Register team, Jenny, Dennis, David, Michelle, and then John Disher too, who's been making these virtual meetings possible for us. And everyone's doing such a great job, and you're all getting used to muting yourself, and they seem to go more smooth every meeting we have. So I just wanted to thank the staff and all of the members and everyone in the public. So thank you for that.
Thank you,
you.
Amy. Amy,
And,
do you know when our next meeting is? It's August, isn't it? Or
it'll be in August. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
August, and then is it November that we've got?
Yes, Amy, you're
Sounds
right.
about right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Vice Chair Stark, thank you for taking over tonight.
No problem.
You know, it's kind of an emergency situation. We had to do this really quickly. So thank you for that.
That works fine. I get to pay attention this way. So if there's nothing else, I will seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are officially adjourned at 8:07. Thank you, everybody, and drive by some of these buildings. They look really cool.
Thank you.
Good job, John.
Thank you.
Good job.
See you guys.
Good night, y'all.